So today was obviously a pretty big day. We know that a huge piece of news for Nintendo came out. We finally had it confirmed who the successor to Satoru Iwata was and will be. It is Mr. Tatsumi Kimishima. Pretty sure I'm saying that right. Pretty crazy news. I saw actually a tweet or an article go up late last night about it, knowing that it was going to be huge news. It was a very, very big deal, obviously. We've all been wondering who's going to take over for Iwata, knowing that he just passed, unfortunately, now just over 2 months ago, as well as what it would mean for Nintendo's future and if the right person would get the job. Miyamoto and Genyo Takeda, I think his name is, had been kind of acting as like dual CEOs sort of in his stead while the company was working to decide who would be replacing Iwata. And when I saw this news last night, I was like, man, that's a huge deal. It's pretty late. Do I want to make a video about it or do I not? And I was like, I'm just going to wait and just kind of see what happens, let it all play out and make a video tomorrow, which is basically right now. I'm actually kind of glad that I did because a lot of info has come out in just this first day about who he is, why the decision was made, and he's even made some business decisions for the company already, which is really crazy to know that it happened that fast. Just here in day one, there's a couple of things happening. But, you know, of course, I want to talk a little bit about the fact that this did happen today. Again, Mr. Tatsumi Kimishima, who is this guy right here, pretty interesting choice. He's not someone that really many gamers are probably going to be very familiar with. And, of course, who knows how many people have made videos about this now. There's been articles and tweets and blogs and Facebook posts about this all freaking day. You know, and I had to wait, of course, this whole day before I could finally talk about it and discuss it with you guys. So none of us really know who he is. Luckily, there's been a lot of research done now that he's been announced as the new president and CEO of Nintendo of Japan, replacing Iwata. And he has a pretty interesting kind of legacy within Nintendo behind him. A couple main bullet points I've been able to find, because again, a lot of different websites and people have been talking about who he is leading up to this kind of new decision from Nintendo. I think he started with Nintendo as the head of human resources for a period, so he's working basically as an HR guy, you know, making sure that things within the company and the employees were working out okay, probably dealing with, like, paychecks, payrolls, retirement stuff, all those different things. So not really very exciting, nothing on the gaming front. From 2002 to 2006, this is really interesting. He was actually the president of Nintendo America, which is really interesting. Those were unique years because that was pretty much the GameCube years, 2002 to 2006. Actually, it was almost exactly the GameCube years minus 2001. So pretty interesting. He did that up to 2006, and in 2006 is when Reggie took over for Nintendo of America. So pretty cool. He then worked for the Pokemon Company, which we know is a Nintendo company. I think, what did I watch? There was Eurogamer's video that I saw via Player Essence's post. Francis from Player Essence posted this, and I watched that quick little 2-minute video. And I think they mentioned that during his tenure as the head of the Pokemon Company, I think Pokemon Gold was the only one that released. And man, I don't know my Pokemon games like a lot of other Nintendo fans, so forgive me. I think that was Game Boy, or Game Boy Color. Like, I think that was older Game Boy, if I remember right, from my GameStop days when I would sell Game Boy, or Pokemon Gold cartridges. It was either DS or Game Boy Advance. No, I'm pretty sure it was Game Boy. Anyway, so that was like the main Pokemon game that came out when he was running that. And then, again, according to the video, it's for about 27 years, he was also working with the Bank of Japan and traveled the world while he was doing that. So he's very immersed in the business culture of Japan, as well as spending many, many years, you know, around, it seems like 20 or so years, just specifically with Nintendo, and a large portion of those years on the gaming side. So he's jumped around quite a bit, worked a lot in the business side, worked a lot in the gaming side, worked on very successful projects with Nintendo. So an interesting choice. And, you know, my knee-jerk reaction when I first kind of read who he was and saw his picture and got an idea of where he was coming from, at first I was like kind of disappointed in the sense that I was like, oh, just some other older, very traditional Japanese guy. Like, I feel like what Nintendo needs is to infuse some youth into the company, into the main business decision-making of the company. And honestly, I still believe that. I think it's one of the things that the company very much needs right now. But, you know, the more I thought about it and, you know, got an idea of his resume and stuff leading into it, I was like, you know, it seems like he knows the company, he knows gaming, and he could be like the right kind of guy to take over. At this point, I just want to trust in Nintendo and the people who helped make this decision. And we know that someone who we all trust, Miyamoto, would have been very involved in this decision. I think that that's pretty cool. And so I'm just going to kind of let it play out the way it's supposed to play out. I feel like they probably knew why they wanted to give Tatsumi Kimishima the key to the kingdom, basically, and have him succeed Satoru Iwata, who I also just learned had tripled the company's profits in his 13 or so years with the company. Yes, the last few weren't as great because we know that the Wii U's been kind of a struggle. They had a couple years where they were actually not making a profit, but they just recently went back into the profit-making scenario. And for most of the time that Iwata was running the company, again, they made crazy amounts of money due to the DS, the Wii, the original Wii, and the 3DS. So that's all pretty cool. So, you know, he's got some big shoes to fill, but I'm sure that they knew who they wanted to get into that role and why. So I'm pretty much just going to believe them. So the next big part of this is what's happened today. In the first day, with Kimishima's first official tenured 24-hour period running Nintendo of Japan and basically Nintendo as a whole. Not a whole lot, but there was one fairly big thing that's happened. Is apparently he's already begun restructuring the company, which is crazy to think about. This shit is nuts, but it's actually kind of cool. So only a couple of pieces of information have come out. They've done a few things. The main thing that they've done is they've basically, what did they say? No, this is officially released from Nintendo. Nintendo is combining the Nintendo Integrated Research and Development Division, which is basically the R&D division, responsible for everything related to producing Nintendo's console hardware associated with peripherals, and Nintendo System Development Division, which handles Nintendo Network Service Programming and Development Kits, into one branch called the Platform Technology Development Division. It's basically a division that's now going to be in charge of hardware. That's like the simplest term. Long story short, they took two different branches within the company and that worked with like hardware stuff and UI stuff, and they basically turned it into one larger conglomerated division that is going to be in charge of hardware. So I guess that's probably the smart move, you know, instead of, you know, kind of splitting your assets, you're turning it into one larger asset that will work together in a unified fashion. Similar to what we've heard over the last couple of years about the Fusion idea and when Nintendo restructured and merged their handheld division with their console division, which was pretty exciting stuff. And we're seeing slowly the breadcrumbs of what that's leading to. And I think we're eventually going to get a larger reveal of what that leads to, probably with the NX, but that remains to be seen. Pretty cool, though. And, you know, he basically just created one unified hardware division and then effectively did the same thing for the software division, where he took two different branches of game development and turned it into one unified branch of game development, which is pretty cool. And it almost seems obvious. Kind of makes you wonder, like, why was this not in place already? I have no idea. You and I will never know why that is. We just kind of learn about these things as they happen, and we just take the information and go with it. I think it's cool, though, because it shows that instantly he had an idea of what he wanted to do that he feels is going to be better for the company. He didn't waste any time getting down to business. Probably stuff that internally Nintendo and a lot of the important executives, including Takeda and Miyamoto, were probably talking about with Kimishima. But now it's finally able to be put in place because the person with the correct authority to do so has now done it. Again, these are the kind of things that probably should have been done a long time ago. But I think that they've been learning. I think Nintendo and the people in these roles have been learning from what's been happening with the Wii U, the 8th generation for Nintendo. An amazing system with a wonderful controller and the best games on the market that isn't successful. So it's just one of these weird anomalies where Nintendo dug themselves in a unique hole with some pretty huge mistakes early on in the Wii U's life, including the name itself. And even the great games weren't enough to dig them out of that hole, which really sucks. It's too bad. At first, I'm disappointed with Nintendo for the early mistakes, and I'm disappointed with gamers for the long-term poor investment they've been making by not investing in the Wii U, and that's created more and more problems, and it's been this cyclical issue. And so here we are with the Wii U getting ready to get phased out way too soon in favor of the NX, but I'm excited to see what that turns into. Kimishima is going to be the man leading us into this new generation, this 8.5/9th generation, whatever the NX is really going to be, and the future of like their handheld stuff, the mobile partnership, which they also talk about a little bit more in this release. Additionally, Nintendo has established a new branch called the Business Development Division. Seems pretty straightforward. It's refining the business model for the dedicated video game system business while also overseeing Nintendo's smartphone and IP licensing. So it's like a succinct definition of a lot of things that Nintendo and Iwata were talking about and putting into place before he passed, and they had to bring us into this new regime. Basically confirming that they are still a dedicated gaming company. They are working with smartphone stuff. They are licensing their IPs for things like movies and all sorts of other different things that we've never seen Nintendo do with their characters before. Larger outsourced branding. I think things that are going to be really good and smart for the company, especially because they have the best IPs and the best characters. Make a fucking Metroid movie, and I'll be so excited. That's the kind of thing that I think deserves a movie. Those are the kind of things that could happen with this restructuring. The last thing they mentioned is that Miyamoto and Genyo Takeda will now have new roles as well. They're basically general managers working with Nintendo EAD and IRD, which is, I think, the internal research and development, respectively. So pretty cool what's really happening there with those two guys. Of course, Miyamoto being very involved, no longer really working on the hardware side, as we've recently learned. He's working almost solely on the software side, a larger business role with the company under Kimishima's leadership, and there's just a lot of things happening there. Holy shit. You know, and it's all really exciting. Like I said, at first my knee-jerk reaction was, does this seem like the guy? Some other old, you know, probably too honorable for his own good, old-fashioned Japanese values man coming in to take over, and like that might not be the right guy. He doesn't seem like a gamer. And although I would still prefer someone who really was a gamer, until we learn otherwise, I'm going to assume that Kimishima isn't much of a super huge gamer himself, but I think he might still be very smart, and it might be the right guy to run the company, at least for a while. And oh my god, I can't believe I didn't even think about bringing this up. Apparently he only has an initial 1 year in the leadership. I don't really know what that means, but he only has 1 year before we know if he's supposed to be the guy for an even longer term or if they're really working on still finding someone else. But right now, he's a year in. He has like a year contract running Nintendo of Japan, and who knows what's going to happen after that. But in day one, he started a restructuring, and he's also come out and made some public statements. This I find very interesting, and I'll wrap up here with this. Is apparently he claims to have been someone who warned Nintendo about the Wii U, said he didn't like the name, and saw issues with it maybe not being very successful. And although I don't love the fact that he was so down on a system that I think is so great, when you look at how things have played out for the Wii U, it's certainly very eye-opening to know that he was able to maybe foresee some of the issues. And I gotta tell you, I think the issues were unforeseeable, because I thought the Wii U was going to be a hit. Maybe not as, well, not even maybe. I knew for sure it wouldn't be as big of a hit as the Wii, and didn't necessarily think it would be like the #1 leader of the generation. But to be where it is currently, never ever did I see the Wii U getting into this position. And that, again, I blame partly on Nintendo, partly on the gamers. The end result is that it doesn't matter, because Kimishima had the foresight to see this potentially happening. The one thing I will 100% agree with him on is the name. We've all talked about it. The name Wii U is just not a strong name. It was a huge mistake to try to continue that Wii brand going forward with this new system. They could have really made, you know, huge milestone leaps if they had gone with something different and tried to rebrand themselves, which they absolutely will with the NX. Whatever that turns out to be, it ain't going to have shit diddly to do with the Wii. I guarantee it may use a Wii remote, and it may use a gamepad and whatever new controller it creates, but I just don't see the Wii name being anything a part of that system. And this is the kind of guy that really makes me believe that Nintendo will move forward. So, in summary, I was initially a little bit worried, but the more I've learned, read, and seen from today, is I think that I like the guy, and I'm curious to see how his 1 year in leadership for Nintendo will really pan out. Restructuring seems like a smart thing. I like how it sounds. I like his zeal in getting right into the position and saying, hey, I've got these things to implement. Let's do this shit. Good man, really like that stuff. Interesting that he had the foresight to see that the Wii U unfortunately wasn't going to be successful. And I think that Nintendo is really going to be opening up with the moving on from its previous CEO and president into this new regime, as I've said many times, with whatever Kimishima is and whoever may take over after that or whatever. I think that we're going to see a lot of the right sides of Nintendo's business open up and be a little more open-minded and a little more transparent, and maybe maintain the right levels of secrecy but not the wrong levels, which I think Nintendo has sort of been doing for a long time. So the NX is going to be hugely telling to Nintendo's future, as well as what Kimishima does in this first year here. So I don't know. I guess really that's it, guys. So you've heard my thoughts. You've heard other people's thoughts, I'm sure. You've been reading the news all day. You've been forming your own opinions. You've now heard mine. So what do you guys think? This is your chance to finally talk to me about it and other people in the comments below. What do you think about, what is his first name again? I keep forgetting it. Tatsumi Kimishima being named as the new one-year replacement for Satoru Iwata. What do you think about his restructuring? How do you feel about what he said about the Wii U? What do you think this is going to mean going forward and for the NX and everything Nintendo? It's pretty huge news. You know, like I said, ultimately, I'm excited. A little nervous, but mostly excited. What do you guys think? Thanks as always for tuning in. Thanks for waiting a couple of days for me to get to a video. Been playing a lot of Super Mario Maker, as you can see behind me. Getting back into Destiny, The Taken King finally releases tomorrow. It's going to be a really exciting time. So getting ready for all those things gaming-wise and playing Mario Maker quite a bit. You know, tell me what it is you guys have been doing. What do you think about all this news about Nintendo? Thanks for watching as always, and I'll catch you guys next time on another video.